All right. Hey guys, how's it going? I think we're live now. There we go. Come back in. Welcome to episode 2 of Idle Chatter. Things are going great in Chicago. It is actually currently raining and snowing and hailing, and it'll probably go back to snow. I had to close the windows a little bit because it's really bright outside. You can actually see from the sunlight on the shelves. So to get the news out of the way while we wait for people to arrive, some fun things going on. In fact, literally just before I got online to start streaming, I was talking with Ken and for our Patreon fans, we're doing a physical gift of a music CD from Ken, who does all our music for the website, and we finally have the artwork and the music done, good to go. I should be getting that in my hands physically on Tuesday, so I can quickly look over everything, make sure there's no typos or what have you. I saw some of the artwork going in a couple weeks ago, and it looks phenomenal, so I can't wait. I just have to contact the duplication company and make sure that the CD template is correct before they start printing them and so forth, because that'd be a waste of plastic and money. Hello to whoever joined the chat, or the video, at least join the chat. Let's get us talking here. So that's good to go. As I mentioned last Idle Chatter, Saturn games are being added to the site. I added a couple more. I'm hoping to add at least 1 or 2 Saturn games with each batch of PlayStation games I add. So by the way that's going, there should be actually, now I think about it, if I did that, technically we'd have the entire Sega Saturn library on site probably within a year, if not less. So we'll see how that goes. Dimension Gamer, aloha. Welcome to the squad. Oh, how's it going, man? Seriously, this is just crazy ass weather. I was getting 3 or 4 phone calls before trying to jump on here. While I'm waiting for Dimension, speaking of getting Saturn games on site, I'm actually trying to figure out, once I get into that groove, what the next system will be to get on, and it's probably going to be either Sega CD or TurboGrafx. Sega CD would be the easiest to transition into because I can use the exact same template as I do for Sega Saturn with a minor adjustment here and there. Plus, that would probably get me off my butt to try and do another 5-second video featuring all the Sega CD games. There's also our Patreon, eventual closure of our Patreon continues. Like I said, that's part of that was the music CD that I mentioned before. I actually have all the assets I need for the other stuff. I just have to get them printed and then get the shipping envelopes for everything. Obviously, what are my notes? I can't read my own notes. Stack of games to add. Stack of games to add. I don't know what that means, so we're gonna skip that one. Oh, really cool. Speaking of Saturn and Sega CD and stuff, Redump finally confirmed with me that all of our archival dumps worked for the TurboGrafx. So the entire TurboGrafx library is now properly archived and infoed and all that good stuff over at Redump. I was talking with a couple of people over there, and I actually have access to a couple of the Sega CD and Saturn stuff they need. So that will actually be hopefully taken care of this weekend. In fact, I'll probably tackle some of that after today's live stream. Hello to whoever just joined chat. So that's going to be really cool. I really wish I knew what the stack of games to add. No, oh wait, I bet you that's PlayStation. So today I was supposed to actually go and do some errands and stuff after the live stream, and instead I'm just going to focus on adding more PlayStation games to site because we've got the Point Blank. I have to do all the Photoshop work to get the big box properly scanned in, and I'm hoping to get all of May done, hopefully by Monday. That way I've got another month of buffer and so forth. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is in the news and so forth. What is going on? Say the first topic to discuss was actually brought up by someone last week. I think it was, or last week, 2 weeks ago, because the Easter break. I think it was Anki. And that first topic is games that made you cry. Now, feel free to join in, and I'm looking at you, Dimension Gamer, and whoever else joined. Get in the chat right now. Let's get talking. As far as games that made you cry, literally, I couldn't even finish that sentence, and the first thought was Mass Effect 3. the first time I played Mass Effect 3, I cried 4 times on the first playthrough, and all good cries, not like bad ending or anything. And I was trying to think of like other games that made me, if not cry, but at least get emotionally or like really deep thinking about it. Last of Us is actually a phenomenal game. That one didn't make me cry. I got a little like teary-eyed in the beginning when it's setting up Joel's situation, but when they finished the game, I wasn't sad. I was just like in shock at like the way that Anki, welcome to the room. What's going on? I remember like literally like just playing, and I just put down my controller and just like stared at the Last of Us's credits as they scrolled by, and I was just like, I don't know how to respond to this. Like being a non-parent, I can imagine how that game would affect an actual parent gamer, especially like if you have multiple kids, because that would just be absolutely terrifying. Years ago, Panzer Dragoon Saga, if you've never played it, has probably one of the best mind bleeps of an ending. It was, I need to play that again. In fact, that might actually be an upcoming pause mode episode, except that's going to be a long playthrough because I have to get all the footages for it and so forth. But Panzer Dragoon Saga, like its ending, it was just like, all right, oh, and it just, and you just sat there for like 10 minutes. Let's see, Dimension Gamer. It depends how you interpret the question. For me, buying Bubsy 3D made me cry, basically. Good interpretation. I've never really had a bad purchase cry. I've had a bad purchase lament, which I've mentioned before, which was the Wii U and buying Mass Effect 3 on launch day, and then literally the next day EA saying, hey, we're not going to support it with DLC or anything. Oh. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really had a bad game cry or like a bad anything cry. It's more of just like a aw. Welcome to the next person who just came in. We're up to 4 people. Get your ass in chat. Let's talk. Anki, if you're just joining us, we're obviously just joining us. We're talking about games that made you cry or otherwise. Let's see, Saga, Mass Effect. Mass Effect 1 didn't make me cry, but this is all true. Like when I finished Mass Effect 1, literally stood up, applauded like for like 3 minutes straight, because the last 2 hours of Mass Effect are like the greatest sci-fi film in history. And then I basically downloaded the soundtrack, rode to work listening to the soundtrack, and pre-ordered Mass Effect 2's collector's edition like that right then and there. Got back home and started Mass Effect 1 again to get the level 60. Other games. See, it's really weird trying to think of games that have affected you just because I've been playing for so long. Like, you wouldn't really hear someone say like, oh man, that Pac-Man 2600, it brought me to tears seeing all the dots on there and so forth. So you kind of have to like, the memory doesn't go back that far. Actually, thinking about it, Final Fantasy VI, I couldn't tell you how I felt, and I don't think I was crying. But I remember when you thought you were about to beat the game, taking on Kefka with the statues, and then you literally see like the Earth just being, or I guess Earth being ripped apart. I can't remember how old I was back then, but I was a younger kid, and I remember just being like, "We won! Like the good guys won. What's going on?" And I think that was the first game that made me open my eyes to like, the whole you can do everything right and still not win angle for Star Trek fans, stuff like that. And I remember being deeply affected by that in a good psychological way, I guess. And I just Studio F and Maz is in the house. So I'm not gonna make her cry. But Studio Mez is a former coworker and awesome friend, Christy, and she does amazing artwork. And I don't know why I keep looking at the live logo and not the camera, so bear with me. She does awesome artwork, and we used to tease each other back and forth at our old job. And yeah, she made me play Gubble. It didn't make me cry. I sat confused. I sat confused a lot the whole time. I gotta get back to Gobble. Actually, I think I got like 10 or 12 stages in. And I was like, can't do it. Dimension Gamer, trying to think of the games I had for the Amstrad CPC. There was one on there that scared the hell out of me as a small child. I don't recall the name of it though. Sorry, I was laughing at making Christy cry. Man, the Amstrad CPC. I don't think I've ever played anything or even touched an Amstrad. Like, not even like been in the same zip code as an Amstrad. Anki, I've been sad in many games, but when I actually made me cry, crocodile tears was the ending of the Swedish game Brothers. That works. When the father cried so much at the grave of his wife and the oh Brothers, the analog game where each of them are on the analog stick. That's been featured in PlayStation Access a lot, and yeah, I could see that being sad and depressing and so forth. Not sad, but angry would have been Final Fantasy VII, which I think I mentioned on the last Idle Chatter. When I was like, 3 in the morning, and I was like, okay, cool, the disc is about to end. I'll just watch the cinema, and Eris gets run through, and it was just like, oh no, fuck this, we're doing this. And I think I stayed up for like another 2 hours trying to track down Sephiroth, knowing full well I wasn't going to just find him and beat him. There was still a disc and a half to go. There's been a lot of like really deep provoking games like Limbo and Inside. Like, they weren't sad, but they were really thought provoking at the end. Especially Inside made me like confused and weird at the at the end when you're just sitting on the beach chilling. Studio Maz. Speaking of Final Fantasy, 9 probably brought the most amount of tears from. Oh God, yeah. 9 was so good, aside from Mr. Clean at the end. I remember being. I think Game Ray was still in its fanzine days when 9 hit, or I might have actually already been at Game Shark. But my favorite memory of Final Fantasy 9 was that was the first game where I truly understood fan service, and I also don't mean like boobies. Like, when you first see what's her face appear in the white mage outfit and all the little like tee drops with like the crystal and so forth, like that's when I first truly started to appreciate like in jokes and things like that, which is why I love the Citadel DLC on Mass Effect 3 so much, because that is just the longest running in joke I've ever played, and it's the greatest thing ever. Oh man, good crowd so far. So as far as topics go, besides the games that made you cry, obviously there's the what's this? Anki. I shed tears at the end of The Walking Dead season 1 when the girl had to shoot her best friend savior. Oh, can't remember. I think it's Clementine. I don't remember the guy's name, but I'm almost positive it's Clementine. That was actually, I remember trying the demo for that, and Becky and I were actually playing it together at the same time. And it was like, oh, let's do this. And we open the door and like 100 zombies just comes out and kills whoever was next to us. And we were like, oh, this is not going to end well. I never got back to actually playing the full game of that series. I guess I kind of substituted Life is Strange for it because those games are amazing. Life is Strange was another one. Not so much tears, but just like shock and awe. I cannot wait for all of season 2 to be finished so I can just download the whole season pass and binge it. Besides games that made you cry, next topic of conversation is the PlayStation 5, which will lead into the main topic of the conversation that I hinted at in the social media posts. Full disclosure, like when they announce details and so forth about a new game system, none of that means anything to me. I'm not a technical guy. I'm the throw the CD in or the cartridge in and let me play. But what caught my attention is all the supposed patents and weird things coming out. Like the fact that they confirmed that it's going to play PlayStation 4 games is awesome, because it's once again the PlayStation 2 where you get to bring all your old stuff forward and that. But as someone pointed out on YouTube, and I can't remember whose video I watched, someone pointed out that one of the patents for the PlayStation 5 is coming across weird in that it's hinting at a weird sort of backwards compatibility where it would be for the actual older systems. And the way it works is is the patent essentially says if you stick in, say, PlayStation 1 disc, the PS5's architecture will say, okay, this is a PlayStation 1 disc. We're going to turn on the PlayStation 1 CPU set and turn off all the other cores. But if I stuck in a PlayStation 2 disc, I will turn on the PlayStation 2 core and turn off all the other cores. And if that's true, it would mean that there's actual physical hardware in the deck to be backwards compatible, like how the launch day PlayStation 3s were. 2, it would mean that Sony double face slapped Microsoft, because if there actually is CPUs dedicated to systems, that might not be actual emulation like they're doing with the Xbox One. That might actually be legit, like the actual hardware, which would be impressive, especially if it supports PS3 somehow. I can't imagine PS3 being in there though, but like, hey, we'll see. It's all good. And the reason I bring that up, that topic matter, is actually the main thing I want to talk about today, which was the PlayStation Classic. And was it actually not what everyone thought it was? And here's what I mean by that. So when the PlayStation Classic came out, everyone looked at it as a ripoff or being inspired by the obvious NES Classic and the Super Nintendo Classics. Now, as I've mentioned before, Sony really didn't have to do anything about that because they've had backwards compatibility forever, especially with the PlayStation 1. Like, the PS4 was the first system to not technically have PS1 compatibility in it. So if you're Sony and you're watching your competition, specifically Microsoft, because God help us with Nintendo, with Microsoft going all out and announcing the backwards compatibility at E3 and hyping it up and so forth. Hey to everyone who joined. I just saw our numbers jumped up a bit. Make sure you join the chat and just join the discussion. Sony must have sat back and realized that backwards compatibility had its place. I never understood why they removed the PS2 from the PS3, aside from maybe cost. Especially when at that time PS2 games were still in the market. I mean, it was all used market, but you were still getting, you're still getting people to buy your system for said things. And the reason I think the PlayStation Classic isn't what we thought it was is because if the patents are true, and this is the path Sony is taking, the PlayStation Classic wasn't a poorly executed, say, $100 charge on trying to get your nostalgia vibe going. It was a slick, sneaky, basically, for lack of a better term, a poll, or like a testing the waters for compatibility. So it's like, I'm sure that those things only cost only like $10 to make. When it was released, everyone complained about the European standards on some of the discs, the emulation issues, blah, 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 yada, yada. So if you're Sony and you send that out, you're now getting this entire universe of feedback of what people would really want in their backwards compatibility. And I'm sure when they saw people like hacking it and getting their own ROMs and so forth, they were like, yeah, people really do want their backwards compatibility to play their old games. So I think the PlayStation Classic was essentially a beta test of how they're going to handle the PlayStation 5's supposed and rumored backwards compatibility. It's the only explanation that makes sense when concerning the PlayStation Classic, because you can intentionally cripple something and ship it out to see how people react to it. And if everyone's like, that's cool, whatever, I'll just play it, then they're like, okay, cool, we don't have to waste the money on anything else. We'll just half-ass it and be done with it. But if there's an uprising and an uproar, and you're watching your supposedly $100 item now going for $20 because there's stacks of unsold ones, you can say, okay, no, look, we need to do this the right way. And I really believe that's what the PlayStation Classic was. It was basically a beta test for a feature of the PlayStation 5. And if it is, Godspeed, because I would, as much as the PlayStation Classic is just bad, I still love it. Like, I've already gone through puzzle mode on Street Fighter, Super Puzzle Fighter. I'm currently playing Persona. I'm almost unlocking all the characters in Tekken 3 on it. It has its place in the world, but I'm willing to bet it was the litmus test. And if it is, I am so happy because it was the consumers and gamers' way of saying, no, F you, this is what we want. Anki Coffee Bean. I am worried that the PS5 is going to be too expensive for me. I hope not. You know what? I don't think it's going to be too expensive. The fact that the PlayStation 4 only launched for $400 was, I mean, you have to take inflation into account, was pretty surprising. And to be honest, with the Xbox One X launching at $500, and I'm not in retail anymore, so I can't really talk to actual sales numbers and so forth. But the fact that it's already been discounted $100 or like 50 if they give you and so forth, that screams volume. So I'd be willing to bet, especially because the system isn't going to be out for another year, that buys them enough time to start racking up discounts on all the like what you call it, manufacturing. So that if it's cheaper for them, they'll pass that savings on to the consumer. It's why whenever they lower the price of the system, the new lower price system always has lesser components and so forth. PlayStation 3's core not being an issue. I'd be willing to bet that PlayStation 5 is going to be $400 or less. Especially with it having physical media, they can make back all their money on the actual software and accessories. So I can't imagine it being more than $400. Potbelly Punch, welcome to the group. Welcome. If they do more than PS4 compatibility, it won't be additional hardware. It's too expensive, too much additional power consumption, etc. PS3 emulation isn't impossible. It takes time and development effort. Fan-based emulators are progressing to play full retail games on PC already. That's cool. I think the PS Classic was a project pitched to them by some UK company, and they were given the bare bones budget. No, that makes sense too. But like I said, I'm really hoping because like just to have an actual like high end, like it's basically either the PS5 has the backwards compatibility, even if it's just PS1 backwards compatibility, which, you know, whatever. It would mean that I could unplug like a whole bunch of cords and accessories that I have for like the SCART scaler, upscaler, and like all the HDMI upscalers and so forth. Oh man, it would be so cool to see PlayStation 1 games upscaled and so forth. But I mean, it's all just opinion and hearsay and, you know, fun chatter and so forth, if you will. So I don't know if it would be too expensive though, especially nowadays. I mean, like with how cheap the boards are, you'll never know. Captain 318, welcome to the group. I'm 36 and mostly only play retro now. I can't seem to get into the modern gaming anymore. For the first time ever, I'm not even a little excited for a new PS. And I don't blame you at all. What I think the reason retro is so popular now, amongst other reasons, but this is coming from a personal standpoint, is that most of it is so cheap and so easily accessible, especially through emulation, that all the things you never had time for back in the day, you can now jump back into. There were a couple of games on actually like the TurboGrafx. Like I never got a chance to play East 3 back in the day because what have you. But I finally got around to playing it, and it ended up only being like a 15 to 20 hour game. And I was like, well, why? Had I known that, I would have played it back then because I thought it was going to be some crazy long RPG. I've literally played some games in the last month where it was over in 4 or 5 hours, and I was just like, why didn't I do this before? I think the reason a lot of people aren't getting into modern gaming anymore, and this is coming from another personal standpoint, is that too many games are open world. Like, I love Andromeda and I love Fallout, even 76 and all its horrible, horrible ways. But I don't need another open world game right now. And between the open world game craze and the games as service craze, I can see that turning off a lot of people. I was so happy to realize I still had to play through a couple of games like Dishonored, and well, Dishonored's technically open world, but like it's more straightforward in its storyline, and like you can just run through it without having to worry about anything else. But I was so happy to have games like that, so I can just sit back, plow through them, and go. I actually just finished the last DLC piece for Tomb Raider. That was absolutely phenomenal. Which I'm already 50% through the insane difficulty run through, and that's only like a couple hours too. Because if you focus on just the storyline, it's good to go. Super Studio Maz. It feels like retro gaming now is honestly super cheap or way too expensive. Yeah, playing on a Nintendo, not bad. Going for a Sega Saturn game, way expensive. In fact, I was helping Christy out the other day, just looking at stuff, and like I still can't believe, like, just so you guys know, it's actually been a while since I did our normal episode. The new episode of Pause Mode, which we haven't done, me hasn't done in literally 9 months, is already in Patreon people's hands. It will go live on probably Monday, and I actually review Toshinden on the Sega Saturn, and I was surprised to see that game coming up to $20 on the Saturn. It's like, oh, so all the games are getting price hikes. Great. Creamy Elephant is in the house. What is up, sir? She is well. I'm well. She's actually off exercising right now with a coworker and about to head to work. I'm sitting here talking to all of you guys, having fun. Yeah, it's just good. Dimension Gamer. I'm in love with modern indie games, but AA games are meh. Yeah, I can easily see that. I think the biggest problem, and I'm going to take a sip of water here. I think the biggest problem with AAA games nowadays is that the games are so big in scope, hence the open world angle, that the original creators aren't on it. Like, usually it's farmed out. Like Fallout alone, I think, has 3 different devs on it. Even Mass Effect had different dev teams technically, despite having the core. And when you get to that like next development group, you can lose that sense of what made the original AAA game that awesome. Like a perfect example would be Devil May Cry, like the one where the reboot where he was a younger kid with the mask. I know a lot of people hated that, and a lot of people didn't hate it, but they didn't like it, and then they went back to the old, standby with the new one. So, like I said, I think just the AAA world is kind of in danger right now because everyone wants to make the next 100-hour game that they can charge you with season passes and loot crates and I can't think of the word now, chargeable DLC. So I think that's what's making the indie games market that much more attractive, is because most of them aren't doing that, or they at least are making up for their crimes. Like the perfect example would be No Man's Sky versus Mass Effect Andromeda. Andromeda, as much as I love it, is clearly, and even after all the patches, is still rough around the edges. And EA was like, well, we're not going to make any more money on it, so it's dropped. Where No Man's Sky, who is giving all these free updates, still to this day is phenomenal. They turned a good but flawed game into what looks to appear being a phenomenal game. I actually still need to get back to No Man's Sky, but I might just start a brand new game because of how lost I was in it originally. Potbelly to Maz. Stone Age Gamers PSI boards for sale. Yeah, I was actually big into PSIO when it was first announced and so forth, but I literally can't stomach spending that much money on an SD card device, and I really don't feel like modding another board because I've got all these ones modded ready to play the physical games and the prototypes. Potbelly Punch, Saturn was always hard to get. Even back then, the stores didn't have many copies of most games. That's true. In fact, going back to the last Idle Chatter, I was talking about how I picked up Panzer Dragoon Saga at my local Toys R Us, and yeah, they only had 2 copies. Like, I remember walking in and freaking out when I actually saw that they had all 5 of the last releases. But yeah, that's probably one of the problems of physical releases, is that there's no way to really judge the supply and demand. Like, having worked at GameStop for literally over a decade / EB Games for over a decade, I can tell you right now, there was never a way to predict supply and demand. Like, to get something off my chest, I should have gotten off like years ago. A while back, there was this craze where like there was a movement that like people wanted you to stop pre-ordering games at game stores and blah 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 because it was making developers rush their products and so forth. I can tell you right now, with GameStop still in existence, that's all bullshit. The only reason a pre-order exists is it's because how a game company, or a store in this case, determines and predicts stock levels. So like, if only 3 people pre-ordered a game, we're only going to get in like 6 copies, maybe 7. But if they see like 35 people pre-ordered a game, then we're going to get like 100 copies, maybe 120, because they know that for every person that really wants it that badly, there's going to be the next Johnny come latelys and so forth. I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, but like back in the day, like Toys R Us, I don't think Toys R Us ever had a pre-order window, and I know EB Games, with EB Games and like Funkoland and Babbage's, like as the systems were dying, like if you didn't reserve it, you didn't get it. Like they weren't going to waste the money on stuff that wasn't going to sell, especially like the Sega Saturn. Yeah. Let's see. Yes, but it's always eventually either the discs or the drives will stop working, and that's true. That's why I actually pretty much joined the redump group. It's still nice to have the physical disc so you can actually make up your own personal backup copy. And in my case, I would need a physical copy anyway, just to scan in all the artwork and research trivia and so forth. One day they will stop working, but I honestly don't think bit rot is as bad as it's being touted as. I mean, I literally have discs that are 20 to 30 years old in this room, and they all still play perfectly. So the bit rot obviously comes from manufacturing processes and quality and so forth, but like I still want a physical copy. Like even if I know I'm going to eventually sell it later on, I still want, there's just that tactile feel. Like emulation aside, backups aside, just actually physically owning something is it's a good feeling. And it also helps you avoid stuff like, I would never support what the guy did, but apparently someone lost access to all their digital purchases on their PlayStation because he was saying racist and bigoted and whatever stuff. And Sony locked him out of his account, and he doesn't have access to his games he bought. And while I would never support that, that is why you have a physical copy. So even if someone says, hey, you can't play this, you can still say, no, I can. Here we go. Potbelly Punch. Someone has the MK3 jewel case up now for $1,200, and they're nuts. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's just someone fishing for a sucker. I think I paid like $60 to assemble mine into a complete set across 2 eBay auctions, and that was like $60 that also included other games in the auctions. The amount of price gouging that is going on right now with variants is unfortunately leaking over from the whole VGA and sealed game craze and so forth, and it really pisses me off. I actually just saw a variant of another one right before logging on to join you guys, of a variant which I will not mention because it would then reveal the seller, but it was a variant that it's not rare, but it only shows up like once every so often, that they're trying to charge like $300 for. It's like, really? Come on. Like, let's be honest about this. Anki, I missed the time when I bought games and they didn't have bugs and glitches. They always do. I mean, the one nice thing about modern gaming is that they can now be patched like on the PC if there is a bug. The bad thing is that now developers will just ship the incomplete game to make the launch window and then just patch on the other side. In fact, I think Mass Effect 3's, I don't know if it's just the DLC. The DLC and the patches combined are bigger than the actual whole game of Mass Effect 3, which is ludicrous. Dimension game. Oh yeah, he just said the same thing. Some people are obsessed with bit rot. Yeah, some people are obsessed with Beanie Babies. It all works. Some people are obsessed with variants. Anyone ever told what the story is with that MK3 variant? Why there's only like 10 of them in the known? I can actually expunge upon that, if you will, or expunge. With any jewel case variants, specifically of long box games like MK3, Ridge Racer, etc. When Sony was moving over to the small standard jewel cases from the long boxes, because of lead times in printing, like back then, you probably would have needed at least 2 to 3 months of lead time to get everything set up, and then in order of, like, if there's 40 companies ahead of you that are printing their game for this new selling system, you're gonna have to fucking wait. there was when Sony was switching over to the jewel cases, they were also beginning to figure out the greatest hits library format. So what happens is basically you have all your long box games that if a company wants to reprint them, they're going to have a small window of the jewel case, or if those games that sold real well fit the criteria, they could just wait and become the greatest hits packaging. And I think what happened is with jewel case variants like the Black Label Ridge Racer, MK3, and I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Maybe Agile Warrior. What happened there is more than likely the publishers went with another print run just to see if all the latecomers who were now just buying systems, who had no idea what the hell a long box was to see if there was any interest in their game still, because by this time it had already been like about 2 or 3 years since those games had originally launched. And if there was no interest, then you just had that small window of jewel case releases that would end up going away because it was just a small print run. And then for those ones that were successful, those are the ones that would eventually either get reprinted again as normal black labels or move on to be greatest hits. Perfect examples of games stuck in that weird like area would be MK3, Ridge Racer, and then on the greatest hits side, like Toy Story, Toy Story's greatest hits and NFL Blitz's greatest hits were in that weird limbo between final print runs of greatest hits games and then moving completely onto the PlayStation 2. I wouldn't be, considering how rare Toy Story greatest hits and Blitz's greatest hits is, I wouldn't be shocked if we found another super rare either greatest hits release game that no one knew about variant wise, or if there was another unknown jewel case variant black label, or like even if it was just like a promotion or a sticker variant or something like that. Publication windows can be really weird. You're going to see a lot of that in the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era with all the day one editions. Most day one editions were basically just for pre-orders. And then obviously there would be a spill off because like I said, like if you had like 30 pre-orders, it means you got like 60 copies. But once that first shipment of day one editions was done for whatever reason, you would then go into the normal printing. And if the game is selling super well, that means they're printing a ton more of the normal edition. So 10 years from now, all those like day one editions or like early release pre-order versions, those are going to be the super rare variants. Not that would be the same equivalent as a jewel case variant. Were they giving out? No. The only display case, they're not display case. They were full legit launches. The only instances of a retail case being a display case would have been with the long boxes. As I said, actually I mentioned this before, but Space Hulk actually did have a legit long box case printed, but by the time it was actually published, the Sony and crew were already in to the jewel case and double jewel cases, so it came out as a double jewel case. Literally the only thing that would prove that long box is not a pre-order display box is a manual, and there has never ever been a manual found or proven. There was also another collector out there actually had legit display boxes that were actual long boxes that were never used of NFL Quarterback Club 96, which actually got canceled, and then its SLUS number was recycled into QB Club 97. And there was another long box game, and I can't remember what it was, but their cases are real, but they're not actually released. They're basically unused display boxes. But all the like the MK3 jewel case, the Ridge Racer jewel case, they were at retail on the shelf, price tags and all, actual released games. As far as games that are given to employees or display cases, usually employee games or games that are sent out for review purposes, if you flip them over, there is usually either a hole punch in the UPC code so it can't be sold or traded in, or in the PlayStation's day, there would have been a drill bit hole drilled through the jewel case where the tray's lip sits. and that was just to prove that it was not a purchased game. Sony, as much as I love them, when I was still at GameStop, there was a Sony rewards program and we could actually buy games with points for doing trivia and all that fun stuff. And I had ordered 6 or 7 PlayStation Vita games so I could actually start my Vita collection. And obviously not a Vita game, but when I got the games in from Sony, instead of there being a hole punched, they literally just took a pair of scissors and like literally gouged through all 7 cases, destroying the plastic and destroying the UPC code, so I couldn't sell it or trade it in. I ended up selling them on eBay as a lot for super cheap just because I couldn't believe they had destroyed those games like that. Creamy Elephant. Anthem's post-launch features have been delayed and has now reverted back to early access status 1 month after. Oh, Anthem. Yeah, I'm terrified for BioWare. I mean, like, BioWare hasn't been the BioWare team since Mass Effect 2, and I'm willing to bet they'll be shuttered within this year. I mean, they're just another studio that EA has absorbed and destroyed, which makes me sad because I was kind of hoping for a Mass Effect trilogy remaster, but it is what it is. I'll always have my 80 copies of the physical copies. Thinking of how much I love Mass Effect, I not only own like all the physical copies and all their variants, so like, you know, regular greatest hits, collector's edition, blah blah blah, whatever. At least on Microsoft, I bought Mass Effect 1 digitally, and I think 2 and 3 are on there now digitally. So I'll probably, if I have enough space, I'll probably go back and buy them digitally as well, just have backup copies of it. MK Trilogy probably. Well, MK Trilogy was never a long box. It was just its game. However, Trilogy originally started out as what was going to be Ultimate MK3 / Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 on the same disc. In fact, I still remember seeing the announcement of it being as an MK1 or 2 combo disc. I was at a mall somewhere and they had it on the wall, and then it turned out that they were like, yeah, we'll just make it Trilogy and have fun with it. Let's see. I picked up that Space Hulk display case in a Funko line. I remember that seeing it. Yeah. It's really weird too, because like it's actually on GameRave.com. I actually like put the case through the paces because I have the actual publisher, what would you call it? Identity manual, like process, like how, like if I'm a publisher, I have the book that says this is what you need to do to make all the cases, and it passed all the tests. So I mean, it is a legit real case. It was just never used. Oh yeah, I got you. It's all good. But yeah, and what's interesting too is like it. Oh, speaking of, like, this is completely useless. Speaking of just greatest hits games, I was actually in GameStop yesterday picking up a not rewards card, a subscription card for PSN, and I know I'm in the minority when it comes to them. I love the greatest hits cases for the PlayStation 4. Like on the PS3, it looked kind of goofy because it was just the red case with their normal spine, but on the PlayStation 4, they actually made the spines red too, so they match up. It looks gorgeous. It actually looks just like how the Dreamcast had with the orange side labels, and I think it looks phenomenal, and I'm so glad they did it. I don't think there's a greatest hits for Xbox One yet, though. Anki, Jason, I have a confession. I have never played Mass Effect, never had time, actually. Well, that's okay. One, it's spelled with an E. Mass Effect would be a bunch of people reacting to something. You know what, though? To be honest, I never had the time either until a coworker basically pleaded with me every day for 3 months straight until I gave up for it. What's nice about Mass Effect's entire series, including Andromeda, is that they're super long games. I think Mass Effect 1 with both DLCs clocks in at about 25 to 30 hours. What's cool is they're kind of sectioned off into pieces. So like you can literally, like, when you first start the game, set aside like 2 or 3 hours just to get the hell off the Citadel. And then once you're off the Citadel, you can literally just put it down, go enjoy another game, come back a couple days later, go to a planet, land, do that planet stuff, go back up to the Normandy, or the Normandy, and then chill, and then just wait and keep doing it planet by planet. On my perfect run through of 2, before going into 3 when it first launched, I basically just treated every mission as like a single day. So like I'd go in, do that mission completely, get all the stuff, get all the money, suck all the planets up of their materials, and then I'd be fine. It's one of the few games that, being that long, you can take in chunks. Like it's not like, say, a Final Fantasy game where you get stuck with a 45-minute cinema that you can't skip, or like in a boss fight that takes half an hour. It's probably why I like it so much, amongst all the other reasons I like it so much. I'm a little upset. I'm a little obsessed with MK3 jewel case. If you can't tell, says Potbelly Punch. If you couldn't tell, I'm obsessed with all the jewel cases. You're among friends here. It's all good. Oh my god. Speaking. Oh man, I just added a game. What was it? There was a game I just added that had a really cool little design in the jewel case, and I can't think of what it is now because I started following all of it. Yeah, whatever. So moving on from that, the next topic I wanted to bring up is something that we touched on lightly on last Idle Chatter, and I kind of timeout. Did EB Games ever sell PS1 imports back then? I remember buying X-Men vs. Street for Saturn at the Gurney Mills. Great question. No. And the reason is, the reason they were selling Sega Saturn imports was because you could literally just plug in the cartridge into the cartridge slot, and it would play the imports automatically. You couldn't do that with PlayStation because it would have either required the Game Shark with the swap trick, and they wouldn't have done that because the swap trick would have been a liability if someone fucked up their system and came back to EB Games and said, "Well, you said they could do this," or actually modding the PlayStation. The only reason EB Games was able to do that, besides having the converter cartridge for Saturn, was because all the imports they carried were English friendly. It was almost always just the SNK ports, X-Men for the Capcom ports, like X-Men for Street Fighter, because all the menus were in English. They rarely ever branched out from the fighting or the like the English friendly games. But I thought that was really cool. But like I said, if it wasn't for the converter cartridge or having to do the hot swap with the converter cartridges, they would have never done that. Like, oh, we're going down memory lane. One of my biggest regrets of all time, and it was because I couldn't afford it at the time because I had a minimum wage job and was only working, so many hours because of school. But back in the day, EB Games used to actually carry the Neo Geo MVS, not the MVS, the AES carts in store, along with the memory cards, because you could use it at the arcade down the way. I kind of regret never actually jumping onto the Neo Geo CD bandwagon, because EB Games actually carried them for a little bit of time, and it was so cool to see Neo Geo stuff on the shelves. In fact, I can still remember walking into EB when it was still Electronics Boutique and looking up and just seeing the giant system boxes for the AES systems and the TurboGrafx CD box, which was literally like this big by this big because it had the carrying case with it. Oh, good times. I love that you guys are giving me all these nostalgia trips. Welcome to the new people who just joined. I just saw the numbers jumped up. Make sure you join the chat. Everyone's having a good time. Let's see. Nothing. Popular Punch. Nothing on PS1 had that demand accessibility that X-Men vs. Street Fighter. As far as import games go, yeah, I would agree with that. You know what? Truth be told, as I mentioned before, like I had my Saturn and Dreamcast mod and never bought any imports. I felt bad because I kind of actually wanted to grab some of the Capcom kart games, like X-Men Versus, and I wanted Street Fighter Alpha 3 so bad on this Saturn. It's like a $300 game now. I can literally just play the PlayStation version. Even X-Men versus Street Fighter, I can literally just play the PlayStation 1 and I'm fine. Up until I figured out how to get MAME running on my Raspberry Pi. I will say this, though, as going back at the original point of entry for the RAM cartridge games, I that was such an amazing time. Like just opening up King of Fighters 95 and pulling out that cartridge and slapping that puppy in and throwing the CD in, and it was just seeing them work together. It was beautiful. It it was basically the Turbo Duo of the Saturn, and it worked wonderfully. Um, God, those are so good days. Actually, if you guys haven't, or if you guys are newer to Game Rave TV, when you're done here today, jump on the channel and do a search for the cartridges we never had. I did an episode a long time ago talking about the cartridge games for Sega Saturn. Potbelly, people wanted Grandia real bad, but that wasn't. Oh yeah, definitely. I need to get back to it. Samurai Shodown RPG on Neo Geo CD has no English patch or English release, and now that I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, I need to play that again and just start plowing through it, because that's an excellent game, but it's strictly Japanese. Hanky Coffee Bean, hit the like button, people. Yes, please do. I do enjoy the likes. While we're waiting for more feedback, the next topic I want to get to was something that we touched on a little bit last Idle Chatter, and that was kind of collectors on YouTube and like what it means to be a collector and things like that. And in the last few weeks, a whole bunch of chaos has been going on in the community. I didn't realize that there was this whole subculture of basically, I'm going to phrase this very specifically. I didn't realize there was a whole subculture on YouTube that were basically just people being vigilant in their critical observations of other YouTubers. And oddly enough, that criticalness actually affects them being critical of each other. And in the last month, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. Like, I'll be honest, I don't watch many other YouTube channels just because I'm trying to get all my stuff taken care of. But there's a lot of goofy people out there. And I think the reason there's so much chaos and animosity and problems on YouTube right now has nothing to do with like the algorithms and thumbnails, but God, those annoy me, the clickbait ones. It's something that I didn't know how to put into words until a couple days ago, and it starts with being what you are in relations to your game library. And I can't remember who said it, but someone pointed out that me as a YouTube channel is more of an educational channel opposed to, say, someone else who is entertainment. Like, for example, PlayStation Access is clearly an entertainment channel. And I started thinking about that whole like education channel angle, and I started going back to all these YouTubers who were doing their critical reviews and stuff like that. And I realized what the breaking point is for a YouTube channel. And that is when you, as the gamer in person, lose track of the realization that you're doing YouTube because of that, not because of you. And as I started watching videos of all these YouTubers being criticized and so forth, the people doing the criticizing had a whole lot of valid points. And I'm not going to name any names because that's not my shtick. One YouTuber who is most of them are being criticized for like the e-begging and all that good stuff. One YouTuber literally spent 20 straight minutes on a stream of a game he was doing, complaining about the game he was playing and saying that he needed financial donations to his Patreon or to the stream, so he'd get a better arcade stick. No, dude, you just suck. Get better at the game. There was another YouTuber, and I can't say his name because his name implies part of the problem. But if you call yourself something that contains the words like everlasting or godlike, that's no longer about information you can bring to the people. That's just trying to put yourself on a pedestal. And I think the problem is that YouTubers are losing sight of the fact that it's not about them. It's about the games. It's about the stuff like that, and that's what people are watching for. Recently, there was an incident where another YouTuber had a video a long time ago, and it got criticized, and all the criticisms were valid. I had the same criticisms. And they did something so monstrous in their response that instead of taking the criticism head on and accepted, like if you go back to my Wild Arms review, like I got criticized a whole lot because of the way I said I was doing comparisons to Final Fantasy VII, and they were legit. I realized I wrote the script wrong, and I fessed up to it and admitted like that's I'm trying to write the scripts better. But to watch another person, instead of face the criticism and realize there's legit problems, to go and do what they did, and I don't want to say what they did because I would give them away. It's terrifying. And if we as a community are going to actually properly be YouTubers and bring you guys the info and stuff you love, be it just talking about games or presenting variants and so forth, they need to not lose sight that it's not about them. And that is a big, big concern for me, because after spending an hour or two watching all these other criticizing videos, there's a lot of people out on YouTube that don't realize that, and it scares me greatly. Potbelly. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go play some Days Gone before I trade it back in for $60. Have fun. Days Gone. I really don't have any intention to play it, but it's not good when a retail store says, "Hey guys, you can bring back a game you don't like for full price," and they choose your game to start it. That was probably a bad sign. Dimension Gamer. I do start out with a YouTuber for the game, but I stay for the YouTuber most times. If I don't like the YouTuber, no game will make me watch. This is true. That's actually the reason why I did the HDMI video. One of the bigger YouTubers had a video on that, and they literally didn't review it. Like they had it, and I was like, okay, it does this, it does that. And I'm like, okay, that's legit. All right, that's cool. And then like when it came to the PS1, they just went, yeah, it works. We're fine. That was it. And I went, what? Which is why I bought it myself. Man, speaking, I'm thinking about Gubble now. I'll have to play through Gubble to get the review going. Oh man. Oh my god, we're at an hour already. Time's flying. I would say, where are you guys at? As I mentioned when I first logged in, the weather has been absolutely nuts in Chicago. Like, it's been raining and snowing and raining on and off all day today. And it's almost May, which is crazy. That's pretty much all the topics I had to talk about as far as like me bringing them out there and so forth. As you can see, I have my little list of things to talk about. I said before we head out of here, did you guys have any questions, concerns, things you want to talk about? Do tell. I'm like all ears. In fact, actually, while you guys are doing that, Studio Maz, welcome to Illinois, where the weather's made up and the forecast doesn't matter. Nice reference. Go Christy. Ankyming, I have a small channel and I only make videos on games I enjoy because I want to share my passion. Bam. Nailed it. That's what it's all about. The passion and the fun. If you ever do a video because you feel you need it out of need or like concern that it's not going to get enough likes and so forth, it's over. Like, it's done. It's always got to be about the passion and the fun. It's scary to speak English, but I still do it, although some may think my English isn't that good. I can't understand all haters. Anki, English is my first language, and if you've been watching my videos for a long time, it's hard for me to speak English. So don't feel bad. Just get it out there. The more you do it, having trouble speaking English is like me having the issues of when I first started doing YouTube, like I was terrified. Like the first season of episodes, you can tell I am just like overly serious and like trying too hard and being focused. And it took at least 2 seasons for me to finally just break out and just be like, yeah, let's just have some fun. Like, and once you realize you should just do it for the fun and basically nothing matters, it all becomes super easy. What is your channel? I want to link to it, watch some episodes. I'm all about paying it forward. Dimension Gamer, I mentioned in the community page, but I will mention here that I think you have a typo in your About section here on YouTube. The last paragraph reads, after then, rather than after that. Oh! I will check that afterwards. See? Criticism, and I take it really well, especially when it's a typo. Check About page. Oh, man. That's like the Sega Saturn typo we had brought up last time about how if you look at early Saturn cases on the back where it's got the seal of approval, they have a typo in there too, which is pretty funny. Anki, in the beginning, I was more worried about my accent and so on, but now I don't mind. I give people some laughs if I can. Accent's an accent. Never be afraid of who you are, unless you're like an evil serial killer, then you have problems. But when I moved out to Maryland for the 2 years at Game Shark, I didn't realize when I got there, I was the one with the accent. I was the one with the Midwestern, for like a better term, drawl. People used to make me ask, like, how do you say roof? How do you say sausage over there? So yeah, it's there is something nice to about an accent. It's all good. Potbelly Punch, did you go to MGC this year? No, I didn't, unfortunately. I'm a very, and I mean this in an observational way, not necessarily a mental way, but I'm a very functional person. And if there's not enough purpose and function and productivity in the action, I usually won't do it. I did go to MGC a couple of years ago, and it was amazing. I actually met up with some of my friends online and had a great time. But for the cost of travel and tickets and kind of walking out of there last time with only just a couple of strategy guides because I literally couldn't find anything I needed, even just for the sake of, like, I literally bought a couple of demo discs I already had just for the sake of buying something so I didn't come home empty-handed. I didn't really feel the need to go again unless something crazy happens. Even the whole bunch of friends that I met up with that year, all but 2 of them didn't go. And of the 2 that went, I think they're both local near the area. So, yeah, I'm not really a convention person. Like, I guess I kind of got that out of my system when I was younger. Nowadays, I'd rather just hop on eBay or Amazon, see what I need, grab it. Although I do enjoy going out for coffee with friends and so forth. But convention going lately, it's kind of like, it's like concerts. Like, I've only been to like 5 or 6 concerts in my whole life, and I would like to go again, but I'll just listen to it on Spotify. I'm outside Milwaukee, so it's a little different. Oh, there you go. Yeah. With me, it's literally a 4-hour round trip without traffic, and we went up there. That went like technically I could have gone up for like just the day and just worried about the gas money and the entry ticket, but the thought of driving for 4 hours in one day, like just after walking around the convention for all that time, just didn't really come across. Like, I'm fairly lazy when it comes to stuff like that. Like, there are video game retro stores that I haven't visited that are like an hour and a half away, like on the outskirts, and I just can't be bothered. Potbelly, got to meet Howard Lincoln and talk to him in person. Got Sexy Parodius for Saturn and Gam. Nice. God, I forgot about Gamer 2000. We used to sell that at the family game store I worked at. I wish Howard Lincoln was pretty cool. It's kind of weird too. Like, I'm really awkward in meeting people in real life, especially when it comes to like professionals. Like if I was in front of, say, just to pull a name out of a hat, Hideo Kojima, I'd probably be like, "Hi, I'm gonna back away now, thanks." Or like if I ever met PlayStation Access in person, they would probably have to cart me away in handcuffs because I would have just jumped all over them and hugged them till I till I squeezed them of all their life. Enki Coffee Bean. I can recommend my last episode of The Forest. Help, I'm stuck. There I get stressed out and scared, so imagine how I smoked. I will have to check that out. Dimension Gamer. Conventions have never appealed to me. I'd rather just watch someone else go. Hybrid! What's up, sir? Guys, if you don't know, Hybrid is the guy that runs I Am Air. Lots of cool things to check out there. You know what's funny, too? Like, the whole convention is not appealing to me. Might be because I used to go to Anime Central all the time, and then one year I was actually the department head for the video game room in 2000. And that one time being into department head was enough for me for the rest of my life. Oh man, I say, what do you guys plan on playing this weekend? I actually just finally finished Streffa PlayStation. Oh, Streffa! You guys, he's got a PlayStation website too. Poland, I think? Question mark. A lot of cool stuff going on his site. Great to have you guys here. This is awesome. What was I talking about again? Oh, games. What games are you guys playing this weekend or the next week? Last night, I think, or the night before, I actually finally finished up the last DLC for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. As a DLC coming out a year after, kind of underwhelming, but it tied off a loose end in the main story. That was quite nice. But I can, if you're just getting into it now, I can, if you don't want to wait for the potential Game of the Year edition, I can highly recommend the game and the season pass. The season pass is 7 DLCs, are basically like a new in-game dungeon, new trial dungeons, and then different weapons and outfits. It adds about, I'd say about 3 or 4 hours worth of gameplay back into the main game, and then the trials can get really addicting. The main one where you have to like shoot the timers and the lanterns. If I had more spare time and not had to worry about updating Game Rave, that's all I'd be doing for the week. Now that I finished Shadow of the Tomb Raider, besides playing Fallout 76 more with Becky, I'm probably going to be finally diving into the Dishonored expansion. I can't remember what it's called. It's the one where you play the African-American woman where you go hunt down the actual creepy guy. Can you tell it's been a while since I played? Dungeon Gamer, I plan on playing Unravel 2 this weekend. I got it cheap on PSN. Nice. Yeah, if you guys didn't see, I think PlayStation's having a crazy huge sale this weekend. I haven't checked out yet. I've actually been trying to not buy games so I can actually play through the games I already have. Hence why I pulled out the Dishonored game, and then I think my next one might be trying to get back to Into the Deep, or what was the other one I just did? There's another game I bought a while ago, and I just couldn't kind of get into it. I'd finished Darksiders 2 already, so that's cool. I kind of want to get back into my older systems. I really want to replay Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 on the PlayStation just so I can finally platinum them. Unravel looked adorable, by the way. Like it was in one of Rob's PlayStation Access Friday features because of the water. That's one I could probably check down the road, like when I finally have like 95% of my PS4 backlog taken care of. I'll probably try and check those out. I love the cute games. Like there was one on PlayStation 3 I wanted to check out really badly, and I can't remember it now. It's the one where we're playing a puppet and he's got the giant scissors as the weapon. That looked really cute too. Streffa, I've always wanted to ask you a question about an adapter. Have you got it maybe? Does it work with Lifespan software? I'm assuming you mean the keyboard PlayStation adapter with the software. I can confirm through some external help, if you will. There's actually the prototypes of the keyboard and mouse adapter, and then there was an actual final retail version that obviously never saw the light of day. Thanks to a friend and constituent, if you will, and some heavy testing and basically text searching with a Game Shark, I can confirm that the adapters do work with the Lightspan Online Disc CD. If I don't know if they would work with the other ones because I haven't had a chance to play any of them. It definitely wouldn't work with 16 Tales because they're just videos. But what's interesting is the Lightspan Online Disc, while it does support the keyboard, it doesn't support the mouse. So literally the unicorn of the adapter is literally only half the unicorn because the online disc only supports the keyboard part of it. I've tried throwing in other games to see if I could find like references to the mouse in the text in the like coding with the Game Shark, and it looks like the PlayStation mouse is pulling different, I think they're called protocols. I'm not a programmer. I think they're called protocols, like when you press the button. So if it uses the actual PlayStation like controller port mouse, it wouldn't support a real mouse through the adapter. So essentially the only reason you would need the 2000 adapters if you just wanted to use a keyboard on the Lightspan disc. And truth be told, unless you're trying to like log into a message board, you really don't need the keyboard even for the Lightspan CD. I used a controller the entire time I did all the video testing and testing and so forth. And let me tell you, I've gotten really good at spelling the word baseball with a controller. Let's see what we got here. Go to the peanut gallery. Streffa, I'm playing Colony Wars on PS1. Nice. Colony Wars, I remember when I was at the family-owned store, and we got, I think was it Colony Wars 1? Is there 1 or 2 that we got in, and we threw it into our display PlayStation just to let people check it out. And I remember being so just in awe of how cool it was and how, like, I mean, granted, it was super detailed because of all, space. But I remember just being so enthralled by it, and I haven't gone back to it because I absolutely suck at flights games. So when I eventually have to do the full playthroughs and reviews of like Wing Commander and Colony Wars and Ace Combats and the like, it's gonna be a fun time. Unravel is Swedish tea. Go you. Studio Mavs, definitely Yakuza 0 and Shadow Hearts. Nice. Becky adores the Shadow Hearts series, and I've actually watched like over her shoulder, watched her play it a few years ago. That seems really cool. The closest I got to it was just was Kudelka on the PlayStation, which was a phenomenal game to play through, if just a little bit grindy and annoying in certain spots. The PS3 game is called Puppeteer. Definitely one I'd love to see get a remaster release. Nice. Shit, by now that should be really cheap. I'm gonna have to pick up a copy at GameStop next time I stop by. Hybrid, don't play Lightspan. I have to. In fact, once I get the Saturn taken care of and maybe the Sega CD stuff online, I need to finally figure out a page template for the Lightspan stuff because it's going to be a freaking disaster. Between the CD variants being separately not matched up to the manual variants, it's just going to be one giant cluster duck. I might have to actually figure out an accordion setup to where, how would you even do that? To where, like, in order to see like the different manual types, because the difference in the manual might not even be on the front. It might be when you open the flap. So I'm going to have to probably do some sort of accordion setup where like you see the listing for it and then you open the accordion to see what it looks like. Otherwise, it would just be like this super, super long page of manual scans, like how like the working designs and Tomb Raider pages look. Oh, yeah, thanks for the explanation. It's all good. That's what I'm here for. Going through with the Game Shark, is that if you're ever bored, or you don't even need a Game Shark, if you throw it into like a decompiling system, go into the hex search, and the hex search will actually pick up any actual text in the game or notes in the game, like how in the Lightspan online disc, you can see notes that say like, oh, this page is blank, or we this blew up, blah blah blah. You can oftentimes find hidden text that was never visible in game, but were programmers' notes. In fact, if you go on YouTube, there's, I can't remember who was I'm terrible with names. One of the YouTubers actually went through a bunch of games hex files In fact, I think it's on the cutting room floor, which is tcrf.com or .net. Some games, like a programmer hid this like 9-paragraph rant in the code of the game where he was just complaining about like his superiors and all the stuff that went wrong with it. You'd be amazed at what is buried on your on your games that you can't see normally. Hybrid, I still need to get me a full copy of Kudelka. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That was probably like, I don't think about it, like the Kudelka was just cool because it was so different from everything else on the PlayStation. Like, I don't know where I'm going to go for my next play. Like, I still need to play War Gods for the Game Rave review, but I think for the next game I'm going to have to sit down and play on PlayStation. I might do something goofy like Kudelka, like be it like Juggernaut or maybe is it Shadow Tower? I think something like not Shadow. Is it Shadow Tower? Yeah, I think it's Shadow Tower. Especially like after having gone through and done words, Clock Tower. I need something like goofy, like, you know, menu-based point and click, something to just change up the norm of the role-playing games and all the sports games I've been playing. Studio Mez, you should play Castlevania. I should. I wonder why. Ooh, maybe I will. Oh, maybe I will. That would be fun. I need a Metroid fix. Castlevania would do it. I should play through the Chronicles disc first, though, and get the original out of the way. Oh man, that's good. I might have to do that. I'm like looking at all the stuff I have to clean up and file. I'm like, yeah, I might have to pull Castlevania out of there. Now the question is, do I go for the 200% run? That's the real question. I love the expressions. Oh my god. You know what? Here's a crazy question. Speaking of games you're going to be playing, is there a game you know you'll never play again or never get to? Would you actually just store it on the shelf, or would you sell it off? In going through all my old Nintendo games and selling them off on eBay to pay for our new Windows, I realized like literally 85% of the Nintendo games I had, I never played, not in 20 years. And in testing them out, realized half a level in that I would never play them probably. Like some of them are really bad, and like I'm really glad that I'm selling them off because now they're not taking up space because I'd never play them. Obviously, with the PlayStation Collection, I have to keep it whole. But like, there are games I've played through, like Bases Loaded. Like, I don't know if I'd ever go back and play it again after doing the review. I did a full season. You know, I did the review, I did the screen caps and so forth. And with nothing left to go back to it, it's gonna collect dust. So for me, the question becomes when the time comes, you know, if I finally ever get like, you know, all the games covered, all the games reviewed, all the games screen capped, all the games triviaed out, would I end up selling it off? And that's a question I'm gonna have to answer one day, and I don't know if I could. Like, I might just wait till I'm in the grave and let the missus figure it out. Oh man. Strefa, do you think PS1 could have had an external modem like Sega Saturn with games supporting it? Yes, and I can confirm that literally firsthand. When I moved to Maryland, when I traveled to Maryland for my interview to work at Game Shark, the boss, John Hayes, brought me into his office to like talk about financials, getting me an apartment, blah blah whatever. And I sat down, and he excused himself because he had to go grab something. And I was kind of looking at stuff on his desk, and he noticed my eyes look at something that looked like a Game Shark cartridge, but it was shaped weird. And he goes, oh, you'll get a big kick out of that. And he actually put up a hand at me, and I held in my hand the shell for what should have been the PlayStation Shark Wire. For those in the group that don't know what the Shark Wire is, the Shark Wire was a keyboard and modem for the Nintendo 64 that was, for lack of a better term, locked out of the internet in order to make sure that it was child friendly and could be sold under the GameShark brand. The Sharkwire basically went to sharkwire.com, which was a website that was controlled by GameShark. And the only reason I know about this is because they had approached me, having seen the Game Ray fanzine at the time, and I became a content creator for the Sharkwire, doing PlayStation, Saturn reviews, stuff like that. And it was from all the work I did for the Sharkwire that got me my job and interview at GameShark. But yes, I can confirm that it would have been going through the parallel port, but that might have been the wrong way to go. The actual modem on the PlayStation that we created to get the online disc up and running, browser aside, actually goes through the multi-out port over by the power cord. So I mean, my PlayStation with that setup actually can go online. Like if you type in the URL, give me a second here. Like if you type in PlayStation.com into the Lightspan Discs browser window, you'll actually see it change PlayStation.com to the correct us.playstation.com URL, and then it just doesn't open the browser. So I literally do have a PlayStation 1 online with a modem. There's a YouTuber whose name I cannot remember now. I think it's Unseen64. His icon is him with like 4 rabbit ears. He had a proof of concept where using a Raspberry Pi at his PlayStation, I think he soldered it to something. However he did it, he basically got the PlayStation through the Raspberry Pi to download an image to the Raspberry Pi. So it clearly is possible to still get the PlayStation online somehow. With the online connection disk being archived on archive.org, basically there's literally nothing stopping anyone from grabbing the file, trying to decompile it, and it's not going to be the perfect original code. But between that and the Saturn browser disk, there's literally nothing stopping anyone from technically trying to figure out how to do online items with the PlayStation. Hybrid, what type of game do you think is overdone on PS1, and what type of game do you think is underrepresented? On the PS1, if we're strictly talking American PlayStation, dear God, sports. I don't hate sports, but like when I can go, I want to play a basketball game, and I have 57 choices of a basketball game, a little too much. A little too much representation. As far as underrepresented go, I would probably say, that's a great question. I would probably say there's no way to split answer. The Goofy games and the not AAA role-playing games, like America got Incredible Crisis and Aquanaut's Holiday and things like that. There were so many more amazing Goofy games that are now insanely collectible on the Japanese side. And when I say that, I mean they're freaking expensive. Like Harmful Park, which is the spaceship shooter where everything in the actual amusement park is trying to kill you. There's Shako, I can never pronounce it right. It's like Shakogoki Showtime, Rakugaki Showtime, which was essentially the PlayStation Smash Brothers. But the artwork was so cool because it looked like someone had drawn the characters on a sheet of paper and then ripped the paper out, and the ripped up paper was what was fighting. There was also Slap Happy Rhythm Brothers, which was a rhythm music based fighting game that it got there was a US prototype of it that got dumped and online, but that would have been really cool to see. As far as the non AAA like RPGs, there were so many nifty little games, not even RPGs, but just like non AAA games that never got released here that would have just flourished, like or flourish is the right word, right? Like succeeded. Like Gunner's Heaven, which is essentially cute Contra or cute Metal Slug without the vehicle. There's another there was a game that Squaresoft did called Sudeki, I think, question mark. It was this triple disc adventure game that just had gorgeous, beautiful music to listen to. They had another game that never got to America called, I want to say Cyber 007, something like that. In that one, it was, imagine a squad-based game. So you have, like, say, Soldier 2, Soldier 3. You pick Soldier 1 and you start going through the levels. And when you got to a certain point, you might have to swap to Soldier 2. Except when you swap to Soldier 2, they're still back at the beginning. So literally, it became an action-adventure tactical game because you had to keep managing all three characters. So you had the right person in the right spot while actively, like, taking on enemies and so forth. We had the import of it at the mom and pop shop, and I think I tried it for like an hour one night just so I could throw it into the Game Ray fanzine in our import section. And I remember being really, I wouldn't say impressed, but intrigued with it. And I think that would actually make a really cool game to check out in the modern era. But yeah, every library's got its, overrepresented, misrepresented, but like, sports games aside, the PlayStation did fairly well with what it had. Technically, even 2D fighters in America kind of got the shaft just because of the hardware issues. Saturn got, even PlayStation in Japan got like all the King of Fighters releases and the Real Bout release and just even the Samurai Showdowns, and none of that was brought over here. Having had, I would, full set aside, had SNK brought those games over, I would have bought them and supported them just to have them have an SNK game on something other than Neo Geo. That being said, Samurai Shodown 3 is still one of the worst ports ever made on the system, but Real Bout Domination Dominated Mind not coming to America was just a crime against humanity. It was so well done. Let's see. Dimension Gamer. I have a few games like that, mainly stuff that I bought when I was going full collector for the Wii. Wii Music being the major one. Oh, Wii Music. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. Man, I actually, when the Wii first came out, I was actually going for a full set, like day one, going for a full set because I just wanted to see all the cool things you could do with the motion control. And then, 40 games into the library, realizing that this is all people were doing for the motion control, I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't need Imagine Party Babies. We'll put that one back. But, oh man, like, you know what the world needs? The world freaking needs is a new Excite truck, not the Excite Bug or whatever that sequel was called. We need like a brand new Excite truck. Like, Nintendo needs to get on that. Like, Excite truck in Legend of Zelda on the Wii almost made me fail college because I couldn't put those two games down after picking up my system on launch day. Anki, I would never sell my games, I think, ... When I bought my PS3, I didn't let myself to start playing it until I finished a bunch of PS2 games first because I knew I wouldn't go back. Unfortunately, when I had bought my PS4, I couldn't resist to plug it in before finishing my pile of PS3 games. So I have this games of shame, pile of shame, as we US folk call it, for PS3 that I want to play but never seem to get time for. I can help out with that. In the living room, I have my PlayStation 4, which is obviously my main system. In the living room, at least. PlayStation 1 here. I also have my Xbox 360 and my PS3 set up. And then Becky on her side has her PS4 and her PS2. Now, she had her PS2 hooked up because she was still playing through some of the Kingdom Hearts games. And when she first moved in years ago, we were playing through, don't tell me what's it called, Cookies and Cream. Which if you've never played Cookies and Cream is a phenomenal game to play because if you play it with another person, it will basically prove if the two of you will last in a relationship or not. And if you've never heard of it, the screen is divided in half. So like she's on this half and I'm on this half. And as you're walking, there'll be puzzles on each side that you have to figure out in order to get the other person aside. But half the time, this person can't help this person without actually being able to get past the puzzle this person needs to solve. And Becky and I, in God, 12 years of a relationship, have never, ever, ever, and this is completely true, never had a fight in 12 years. And let me tell you, we came real close the night we played Cookies and Cream. But what you do is, getting back to the point, is you pick a main. So your main, in my case, is my PS4. You pick a main game. The new main game is going to be Dishonored, blah, blah, blah. You then have your secondary system, in my case, PS3, and that secondary game is going to be Mass Effect 1. So basically, you play your main game, and then if you need a break, you just put it away. A couple days go by, you play your secondary game. Play for an hour, whatever, go back to your main, and then after a while, you've been able to get through like 3 or 4 games. I literally played through Limbo and Inside, and one of the other games while I was doing Shadow of the Tomb Raider and playing 76 with Becky. So it is possible and doable. Another neat way to do it is pick a long game, like an RPG, and then pick out games that you know are straightforward, like an action-adventure game. If you know that game's only going to take 7 to 8 hours to play through, while this one's going to take 100, use this as your 1 hour a day break, or a 1 hour every so often break, and eventually you're finishing games left and right. In my weeding out of all the Nintendo games, I actually started weeding out a bunch of PS3 and PS4 games I know I would never actually get to be sold off. But I cannot wait to, like I said, play through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 again to get the trophies on my PS3, and then go through the Xbox games I never got to, including like Jade Cocoon, which is backwards compatible on the 360, but it's got some issues on the movies. And then I need to play through Borderlands Game of the Year Edition, or even Dead or Alive 6 Ultimate I have, which I'll just play through all the characters. I don't care about unlocking all the uniforms and stuff, but it is doable. You just have to kind of like pace yourself. Hybrid, I have a misprint Wii Music, but no Wii. There was a misprint. What was the misprint? I remember there being an issue at GameStop. I don't remember what the misprint was. I'll have to go to his website at iamair.gamehacking.org. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, but yeah, you know what? Going back to Anki's comment about never selling games, I think I was at that stage too. Like, if you go back to the whole, confessions of the earlier episodes where I explained how I actually started selling off of my collection. Selling off a game is really easy if you just start thinking about it. It comes down to like, will I ever play this again? Will I ever get to it again? And then there's the nostalgia test, and that is where even if you've never played it before, you just toss it in and you wait about 15-20 minutes, and within those 15-20 minutes, if the thought is, I'll just try this again later, thumbs up, you can sell it off. And there was a lot of those back in the day when I was selling off my bigger library. Oh man. Oh. All right. Just writing notes for myself to check out Anki's page and fix the About page. Anki, I am a hoarder of many things, or hamster, as we say. You're only a hoarder if you're not using it. Like, as long as you can figure out an excuse to use it, you're not a hoarder. For me, a hoarder is like when you see images of like laundry just piled everywhere, or like twist ties from like all the boxes of garbage bags you bought just in drawers. That's a hoarder. This is more mindful organization and adopting. Oh man. Ooh. Looks like the rain and the snow finally stopped. No, I have a lot of excuses. Excuses are really easy to come up with. They are. But it's all good. Oddly enough, like I kind of I've been selling off all my Neo Geo MVS stuff because like as much as I loved having all the arcade games, I realized having played through like Burning Fight 3 or 4 times and playing through what's that game called? The yo-yo one, whose name I can't remember now. I realized like after 3 or 4 times, I'm probably never going to play through it again. And like, you know, the excuse was like, well, like when friends come over, like I haven't had friends over in this apartment in forever just because our schedules don't line up and so forth. And truth be told, there's literally no room in here to sit as far as like a couch goes to enjoy the TV. So you find ways to keep the hoarding and you find ways to get rid of the stuff you know you'll never use. So it all comes down. Oh, okay. So just so you guys know, the chat says, hey, we're going to hold this comment for review in case something goes on. So I just got Hybrid's link through. I don't want to get flagged on YouTube. So what he's talking about is there's hidden text on ET for PS1 that is basically says blank Hitler. He actually created a Game Shark code to display it as the pause text. So you can check out his site for that. That's hilarious. I'll have to remember that when I get to the eventual page for that. Dimension Gamer. My dad was a good warning for me as a collector because he would keep everything, including TED light bulbs, broken kettles, you name it, he would keep it. That reminds me to keep my collection clean. I can kind of commiserate. I was raised in a family of antique collectors. Like my grandma actually had her own antique shop, and would do all the conventions and like, you know, antique shops shows at the malls and so forth. Like I have very vivid memories of being in second or third grade, and because my mom was helping my grandma run the shop, after school we would literally just sit in the back dingy, dark, scary back room of her antique shop and do homework, or in my case ignore the homework and dig through all these old just boxes of classic comic books. Like it's I'm hoping that there was nothing worth anything. A lot of the comic books were like they were clearly red, used condition because they were just in, you know, boxes that people had taken from, you know, kids' rooms or whatever, you know, sold, not stolen. And I remember reading like classic books of like Batman and the Justice League and the Flash, and just looking at all the old artwork where it was just the 4 colors and you could tell it was like them cutting out the cellophane colors and mapping them down. Growing up in that environment and looking around and like seeing how much stuff she had, and she passed away a while ago now, probably about 7 years ago, give or take, maybe 8. Having seen stuff in her antique rooms, in her antique shop, that were there when I was in 3rd grade and was still in her possession unsold in the shop all these years later, that was kind of a wake-up call. I mean, it was a good wake-up call. But it really like said like, hey, look, you know, you don't need to have everything. Just pick your fanboys, determine what you're going to do with that fanboy system, and then go for it. That's pretty much why I willed down all the way to just, oh, can you guys hear the birds? There's actually chirping out there. That's why I willed down to just my fanboy systems, which are the PlayStation, Saturn, the Neo CD, stuff that at the time gave me the most memories and the most enjoyment and so forth. Like I'm down to like the last probably 13 PS2 games I have left. I might sell off most of those too, just because I either played through and enjoyed them and will probably never get back to them, or, you know, I just don't feel like playing through them again. I still love that. I have a lot of excuses. Anki Coffee Bean, next time we chat, we need to discuss the best way to get our beloved machines dust-free. I know I should clean them more often, but I'm lazy. When I play online games, my PS4 fan is so loud and noisy. Actually, we're already going like an almost 2-hour mark, so we'll actually close right now with that, because I need to get to take care of some stuff because my phone's been ringing off the hook. Cleaning systems, especially the older systems like PS1, PS2, fairly easy. Just a quick little dust can spray. like if you hold the system up and spray on one side, you can shoot the dust out the other side of the vent. As far as opening the systems to clean, that's out of my range, but or wheelhouse, if you will. But there are actual videos online that will show you. Like I think the PS4, you can actually slide off the lid, and I think if you move one piece of something, you'll have access to the fan. You can just air gun it out and so forth. But mostly, like cleaning out an old PS1, it's a Lego set. 6 screws open, I think 7 screws open, just wipe dust, good to go. The real maintenance, especially with the older systems, is replacing the caps and oiling up and greasing like all the laser trays and so forth. I had a friend whose PlayStation was super loud, and she actually opened it up and did the dusting and so forth, and that was pretty good. Now, we, as always, just make sure it's in a well-ventilated area, too. But yeah, definitely check YouTube. There are actual videos. In fact, if you actually search how to clean a PlayStation 4, I'm willing to bet there's at least 3 or 4 people that have actually properly mapped out what to use, how to open it, et cetera, et cetera. And although if you actually open the system, that would void your warranty. So just wait till it's at least a year plus old. Anki, are you having your consoles covered when you don't use them? I should, but I don't because laziness. That and with the way my systems are in the rack, covering them would be kind of problematic because it's basically a IKEA kitchen cabinet that I made into a gaming rack. The problem with covering the ones I don't use, like my PlayStation is the 3rd shelf down. If I were to cover the other systems on top of it, the heat being generated from the PlayStation would essentially just get trapped by the dust covers and the shelf above it, and that would just spell disaster, especially with how close the systems are. Like the PlayStation and the Saturn are literally like that next to each other on the shelf. But nothing, little I can't remember what these are called, not terry cloths. The cloths that you use for like your glasses or like your screen monitors. I just bought a couple of them, wipe down the systems every so often. They're good to go. Nothing has ever gotten that bad dust-wise. Although my Neo Geo CD is starting to look at. I'll wipe that off after the video. But as long as you're actively playing them, they shouldn't collect that much dust. The worst dust collector I ever had was my PS Vita because I didn't realize I had left it out. And it was on a shelf in the living room, and I forgot it was there. And I was cleaning, and I found the power cord. I was like, "Oh, what the hell?" And I look up, and I saw it. I'm like, "Oh, cool!" And I grabbed it, and like it could have been like the PSX edition Vita because it was just that gray. I took a whole bunch of the cloths to it, making sure not to use any type of spritz or anything on the screen, just soft clothing it, and then using a Q-tip, a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, just to, or I think it's rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, just to clean all the nooks and crannies. Dimension Gamer, probably not a good idea, but having my PC close to my console sort of keeps them clean because the PC is a dust magnet. Amen, bro. Amen. When I got my new PC, I had it literally a day, and I came back in, it was just, oh my God. All right, guys. We are basically at the 2-hour mark, so I think I'm going to call it there so I can get to whatever the crazy phone calls were going off. Thank you again for stopping by. I love talking to you guys. I love doing this. Hopefully next week we'll be back on Sunday. If you guys, are you guys comfortable with like the noon time frame, etc.? If it's not, let me know and I can try a different time. Maybe like, people coming from church or something, a little extra time to get in, because I never really took into account like the coasts and so forth. So yeah, that being said, this day's Idle Chatter is done. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. New pause mode should be up on Monday. There might actually be a Let's Play to go with it. And other than that, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. See you then. Take care, you guys. 6 is good for me. AM or PM. Take care, you guys.